Hey guys, would you like to know why we're here?
I'm guessing against animal cruelty.
That is a good guess. What we're showing on the screens is the animal industries, meat, dairy, and eggs, and other industries also that abuse animals for products. So do you find this to be morally abhorrent, or do you think that this is okay? You think it is?
Of course it is.
Okay, yeah, sure. So what do you think you can do about it then, as an individual?
I suppose various ranges, right? Going from being vegetarian, vegan, avoiding dairy produce, to protesting against. Along that line.
Sure. What we're promoting is veganism because vegetarian doesn't address the issue. Vegetarians still abuse animals. With promoting this, I would agree. You should also speak up about this injustice, just like we should with any other injustice, right?
Absolutely.
Right. So, do you know what the number one benefit is for you to be vegan?
Avoiding this, you'd hope.
Yeah, the number one benefit for you as an individual is that you no longer have to abuse animals anymore.
Yeah.
And if you say that you're against animal abuse, then you no longer have to be a hypocrite because your actions say otherwise at the moment, right? If you're not vegan?
It depends. What if you use produce that you know doesn't go through this sort of process? Let's go with process.
Okay, so what are you talking about? Are you talking about animals singing and dancing into the slaughterhouse and wanting to be killed?
Well, no. I mean, but there is a range, right?
A range of what?
There's a range between...
Are you suggesting there's a right way to do this? And if so, how would you describe it?
I'm suggesting that there's a better way to do it.
Sure, how would you imagine that happening?
Well, there's certain ways that the animal cannot feel pain.
Right, now put yourself in their position. Would you want to be killed painlessly, or would you want to live your life with liberty and bodily integrity? Would you want your life taken from you when you're not looking? Or would you just want to be left alone?
Well, again, it's a range, right? And yeah, you're absolutely right. The best option is that it doesn't happen. But
it's black and white. You either abuse animals by eating them and consuming products that are based on animal body parts, or you don't. Just like with any other injustice like racism, child abuse, etc., you either are a racist or you're not. You either support child abuse or you do not, with your intentions.
I think we're getting into a very philosophical conversation here.
I would also,
black and white morality, actually, not philosophical, really.
So, well, the philosophy part comes in because, like, you're talking strictly from the standpoint of whether it's right or wrong, and then we could agree that it's morally wrong, but then the question of what to do about it will fluctuate based on both whether you're a moral pragmatist or a moral idealist. I would believe that yes, all of this is morally wrong, but I think whether you flat out boycott the products depends, like whether that's an obvious answer depends on whether you're, what the infrastructure of the government around you is.
Well, if you say this is wrong, and then you pay for meat, dairy, eggs, etc., your actions say that you don't think that it's wrong. That's why this is very simple.
Okay, but let's broaden it out. So you've got a battery pack there. That would contain some lithium that's been mined up, I assume, from China. The working conditions there are terrible. Do you agree that mining conditions in China are terrible?
I don't know. Do you know? Or did you just hear that somewhere?
I'm pretty certain they're terrible.
Yeah, I don't know.
Well,
but
okay,
what's the
alternative
to that battery? Because we need to do our activism, right?
Oh, you could use a solar panel.
A solar panel?
Yeah,
do you think that would work for 4 hours?
No, it depends how long.
It doesn't work for 4 hours.
Do you know that, or are you guessing?
I've looked into it, yeah.
Have you?
Yeah.
So with the energy thing, there's a give and take. It's not as black and white as you have to use.
It is black and white, because what you just brought up is a human rights issue, and while we would agree that that is an important issue, there is practical measures that you have to take in society. You can't just live in a hut in the jungle. That's not a practical message to spread to everybody, is it? To be a part of society, you do have to contribute to certain things like TVs, wearing clothing that may not come from the most ethical factories. But how does that justify what we're doing to the animals when you can easily be vegan?
Okay, but you could easily wear ethical clothing.
Well, we actually do, but my point is, in this world, we don't live in a 100% vegan world, so practically speaking, it's not possible to not abuse animals 100% of the time. Even if you did live in a hut in the jungle, you will step on bugs sometimes, so it's unavoidable.
I think that's kind of what he was trying to say earlier.
No, he was trying to say that you don't necessarily need to be vegan to address this, right?
Well, so hear us out without interrupting for a second, because if we're on the same page that animal cruelty is wrong, but then if the goal, the part where philosophy comes in, is that if the goal is to do as much good and as little harm as possible, then there are some areas where boycotting will be the obvious choice. There are some areas where boycotting would not get as far as what you might have the good intentions, but it might not have the consequences you're going for, because what might happen is, like for example, in a very capitalistic society, the markets that are doing this are never going to count on your dollars anyway, so they're going to disregard whether people are voting for that with their dollars. But if you're buying things that like what Steve was saying before, are we can prove beyond a reasonable doubt are much more ethical ways of getting the vegetarian products, then that sends a message that they will actually listen to, because then you're actually part of their market. And there's the philosophy part comes in, whether is the right thing to do to boycott and be like, well, at least I personally didn't do this bad thing, or is the right thing to do the thing that's going to cause the most good overall. And that's where it gets complicated, because you have to do more research than simply boycotting, because if the market is strictly running off business and sees you as a threat, they're not going to listen to your opinion to begin with. But if you're there are some areas where boycotting is the obvious choice. There are some areas where you can make more progress by gradually introducing the concepts to the market.
Yeah, but how does that at all remove the need for you to be vegan? Economics is very simple. It's supply and demand.
So
Regardless.
do you think the demand will ever go to zero for animal products?
No, I don't think racism will be abolished completely either off this planet, but that's not the defeatist attitude that I hope to hear from people. I hope to hear that people will say, I do think that animal abuse is wrong, therefore I don't want to promote this.
Racism with animal abuse to the scale.
Why?
Because the proportion of people who are racist, I assume, is significantly lower than the number of people who eat meat.
Exactly. That's why this is even more relevant. This is happening at a greater scale, and this is the largest injustice that's ever happened on the planet. And the only reason I bring that up is because humans tend to care about racism in this day and age, or child abuse, and therefore I draw the correlation, so maybe you can feel some empathy for these beings.
But the empathy is precisely the reason why you should do more research. You should do something, and we agree with that. We agree that it's wrong. We agree something should be done. But
then where do we disagree on you being vegan? Because that's something, seems like the least that you could do is not support this.
The part where we disagree is that you should do your research before taking action.
Research on what?
On how purchasing products impacts the environment around you, how it affects the market around you.
We have done that research. Supply and demand. Your dollar is a vote for what you believe in. If you pay for meat, dairy, and eggs, or any product from an animal abusing industry, you're supporting the idea that this should continue to happen.
But
you're paying their salaries.
All animal abuse in the industry to the same level. We agree that free-range chickens who lay eggs in a free-range way is better than a battery farm.
No, we
chicken.
don't agree.
So you think that that's the same?
It's absolutely the same. You have been confused by marketing. They've lied to you. Free-range, grass-fed, organic, humane certified, RSPCA approved are labels that are designed to make you feel better, the consumer, not the animals. They're not designed to make the animals feel better at all. If you were to put yourself in the free-range chicken situation, you would never want what happens to a free-range chicken happening to you.
No,
and that's the
but
truth.
would I rather that than being force-fed in a cage?
Would you rather that or being vegan? It's not one of those two. There's also a vegan option.
Yeah,
so
okay, sure,
right.
there is. But my question is, so if people who are currently, so let's call it a scale, that we agree that there is a scale, there's three options. The vegan option is the best option. There is a battery farm, which is terrible, and close to the terrible option.
I could argue that the factory farm might be better because you're killing them and ending their misery that they're in, their condition of suffering. So you can look at this in two different perspectives here. You're trying to say that you do extend empathy for the animals by looking at the better option, but you're falling short and being a hypocrite, because the only way for you to actually care is for you to be vegan. Even if the cage is a meter bigger, you would never want to be in that cage, because you would want liberty and bodily integrity. You wouldn't want the day of your execution planned when you're born. That's what happens to every free-range animal in those industries.
But you're right, I wouldn't. I would also still much rather be free-range than a cage.
Yeah, you know what would you much rather than all of those scenarios? Is to not be enslaved.
But that's
at
still,
all.
there is still, again, a scale. My point is, if you take out the people who agree that animal cruelty is bad, what happens is you just abolish that free range bit, and you would create, as you say, supply and demand, that the people who no longer care about animals at all, which there is quite a large portion of society that do, they will just force prices lower, and you would just end up getting more and more battery stuff.
Like I said, if you were to visit a free-range farm right now, you'll see that it's not much different from a factory farm. So I don't understand your point. This is already happening. These animals are already being oppressed in vile conditions, even in free-range situations. If you were to actually pay attention and live on those farms, you would see that for yourself. If you were to watch the whole process.
I'll go to a couple of free-range farms.
I challenge you to do that. Will you really do that?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, you promise?
I do promise.
Okay. Will you go to the slaughterhouses as well, where they're all sent? The free-range animals? Not good enough for your eyes?
I have seen the slaughterhouse. It's not pretty.
Yeah, not good enough for your eyes? So what makes it good enough for your stomach then?
Okay. Ah, cool. Let's go.
All right, you take care.